Welcome to Heal the World Show podcast, brought to you by the Healing Institute. The Healing Institute is a worldwide online hub of holistic practitioners. We are making a difference on health and healing in the world, and we want you to be part of that. So we are bringing health and healing to the world. We're giving people hope. I designed the Healing Institute and called it an institute because I'm really passionate about educating people about how to be well and how to stay well on their health journey. Because let's face it, we're all on a health journey. So let's make it a proactive one, not a reactive one. I've been using holistic ways of being well for well over 30 years, and so I know that they work. And what I love about our holistic practitioners is that they get to the root cause of whatever the issue might be. You know, for many years, we've had a medical model that only dealt with symptoms. And I really think that's why we are seeing such an increase in health issues in the world today, was because we just dealt with it with symptoms. We didn't actually get to why those symptoms were showing up. And that's what I love about our Healing Institute and the holistic practitioners that are part of us, is that that's what we do. We find out exactly what is going on. So why is this so important to me? I always like to tell a little bit of my why, because it was very influential in me developing the Healing Institute. And it was because of a tragedy that we had a number of years ago, and my mom passed away at age 61. Now, she had been having some issues, and we didn't know what they were. And we found out afterwards that it was really because she had been on a medication for over 20 years that actually affected her kidneys. And unfortunately, she died on the 15th of December, so right before Christmas. I was 5 months pregnant with my son. And I say it's not only a tragedy that she passed away at such a young age, but my children did not get to meet their grandmother. And I don't want that happening for other families. So that's why this is so important for me and for all of our practitioners that are on the Healing Institute platform. And each week on Heal the World Show podcast, and this is our 113th episode. We've been doing this for 2.5 years. I always invite someone to come and be talking to us about their area of expertise. And I'm delighted today that we have Almari with us, because Almari is one of our holistic practitioners on the Healing Institute platform. And so we're going to be talking about a new program that Almari has put together. And so it's called the Emotional Elixir Experience, and she is the creator of it. And so that's what we're going to talk about today. For our theme is in November is Navigating November, which is actually that was an inspiration that Almari came up with when I was trying to figure out what I was going to have for a theme for November. So yeah, we're navigating November, and Almari, welcome to Heal the World Show podcast.
Thank you, Pamelia. I feel so honored to be here. We had a conversation earlier this year, and I really appreciate that I can be on the platform again and talk to you again. Thank you so much.
You're so welcome. So let's talk about the Emotional Elixir Experience.
Yes. Well, I have been working as a boundaries coach for some time, and we had our conversation in January was about exactly that. My boundaries coaching and the importance of boundaries, and how we start to set boundaries. And if you can remember, or the audience can remember, I said the very first thing that I started to do to implement boundaries was to ask myself, if I say yes to this, am I saying no to myself?
That's such a great question. I love that question. And I love the
Thank
fact
you.
that when you talk about setting boundaries, you also talk about them being intentional. So
Yes.
that's when you really have to tap into that answer to that question to know whether or
Yes.
not you are saying no to yourself if you're saying yes to something
Yes.
else.
Yes, and we need intentional boundaries because
Oh, we just froze for a minute. I didn't tell everybody that Almarie is coming all the way from South Africa. So sometimes we have a little bit of a technical glitch. So we'll just wait. Can you just repeat that because you froze for a few minutes? So, oop.
Okay, I see I'm back on.
Yes, wonderful. So yes,
Yes.
we need you to explain that again because you just as you started to explain about intentional boundaries, the screen froze up.
Okay, well, thank you for your patience. That's unfortunately the network that I have here. So yes, we need to set intentional boundaries because when we don't set intentional boundaries, it's often fear-based. And we all
Yes,
know that fear-based anything is reactive to something. And that's not a healthy place to set boundaries. So we set intentional boundaries. I guide people to learn to set intentional boundaries, which is proactive. So
right.
we are setting better and healthy boundaries because it's proactive. It's not reactive and based in fear.
Perfect. I love that because that is so true. When we do anything that we might do that's based on fear, it's not going to be a positive outcome.
Yes, that's true. So then after our conversation, sometime during this year, I realized that boundaries cannot stand on its own. It
Mm.
needs support.
Mhm.
And we need support in understanding our boundaries, understanding why we don't have boundaries, understanding where boundaries need to come from, how to set it. So I decided I'm going to expand on what I'm coaching. So that was where the emotional elixir experience was born. And this elixir is a mixture of self-relationship repair, where you go deeper into why don't you feel comfortable? Why do you make decisions on fear-based decisions? And then the third pillar, I call it the 4 pillars of the emotional elixir experience. So the first one is boundaries, intentional boundaries. The second one is self-love repair. And the third one is emotional flow mapping. So we all know, and I think especially as women, we know that oftentimes our emotions runs the show.
Yes,
It
most
just come
definitely.
up and we just react and we just do what the emotion is urging us to do. So if we learn where our emotions come from, how it works, what reactions comes from our emotions, we give ourselves a chance to take a pause, to breathe for a moment and decide what are we going to do, decide how we're going to respond instead of react. So that is why the third pillar is emotional flow mapping. The flow map is how we figure this out.
Oh,
And then
wonderful.
the fourth pillar,
Mhm.
sorry,
Yeah, go right ahead.
thank you. The fourth pillar is energy leadership.
Mm.
So oftentimes when we don't have boundaries, our energy goes everywhere, or a lot of places where it shouldn't be going. So
Or we're not
in
directing it. We want to direct our energy to what's going to be beneficial for us.
yes,
Right.
yes. And a part of not being able to redirect it, this is Zoe saying hello, sorry for that.
That's all right.
A
He's
part
always
of not
welcome
do
on the podcast.
thank you. A part of not directing our energy is we have leaks. It's a boat that have leaks and we don't know where the energy is flowing to.
Mm-hmm.
So the energy leadership part of it is to plug the leaks or maybe recover the whole boat. So we keep our energy for ourselves and we decide, like you said, we decide where we direct our energy to.
Beautiful. I love that. I love that.
Thank you.
So I'm just really excited for you because how you've put this program together, not only setting intentional boundaries, but also these 4 pillars. Well, the setting the boundaries is one of them, But the other three pillars that are supporting setting the boundaries, I mean, that is so important, so important. It's like setting an intention. You can set an intention all you
Yes,
want. You can put the post-it notes on your bathroom mirror. You can you can write I will be blah blah blah. But if you haven't got that again as part of who you are, which is including your energy, it's not
yes,
going to come to fruition.
yes,
Just,
that's true.
I just want to take a moment and welcome Marie Piplovic. She's in the green room, but she's always got some great comments. Marie is also another one of our practitioners at the Healing Institute. And Marie is a fabulous breathing facilitator, conscious breathing facilitator, and she also helps people who are in burnout. And she said, this is her comment. I like that intentional boundaries are not based in fear and are proactive. Oh, can you give us an example? Great question.
Yes, well, thank you very much for your question, Maria. I appreciate that. And thank you for asking that. I like to use this example of imagine yourself being a mom working all day and that it was a tiring day. And then you pick up your kids and you go home and someone is upset or something goes wrong. Not something goes wrong, but something is not going exactly the way you like it. And because you're irritable because of what happened during your work day, you react towards your children in a manner that you don't want to react. So you shout at them or you stop the car and get them all off the car, out of the car and give them a good speech or something like that. And that is a reactive boundary.
Mhm.
You reacted to something that happened during the day, and then you were a bit overburdened in the situation with your children on the way home, and then you reacted and you set a boundary unintentionally that
Mm.
your children is going to know now when mom comes from work, she's going to shout at us.
Mm.
And I'm sure there's no mother that wants to have her children believe that.
Right. Yeah,
So that is a
absolutely.
reactional, unintentional boundary. And that is not a healthy boundary, neither for you or for your children. So a proactive or intentional boundary in this instance will be to try your best to stay calm. I'm not judging anyone for not staying calm, but then you have to go back and see what happened during the day that made me irritable. And you
Mhm.
need to find the root cause of why you were irritable. And you need to set a boundary there. So maybe it was your boss didn't like the proposal you did. So you can either set a boundary. It's difficult to set a boundary on other people. So you can set, but you can set a boundary to go and speak to your boss and say, I don't like the way you speak to me. Please
Mhm.
refrain from speaking to me in this way. But you can also set an internal intentional boundary that says, when something happens at work that upsets me, I'm going to make sure that I get rid of that energy,
Ah, yes.
that negativity before I pick up my kids. So I don't take my irritation out on my kids.
Yes, that's perfect. That's beautiful. Um, and we could also set a boundary with the children.
Yeah. Yes.
Having lived the scenario you just explained,
Yes.
where when we're driving in the car and we're driving home from daycare or wherever, um, after work, that they get to read a book in the back seat of the car, or they don't, they're not going to be asking mom a whole lot of questions because she has to concentrate on driving. And then when we get home, we can have that cuddle on the sofa, and then they're mom's available then for them 100%.
Yes. Yes. That is true as well. Yes. But that's an intentional boundary. You are not
Yes.
reacting from some space and just doing this. You decide that once this happened, so next time I'm gonna teach my children this is the way we drive home. This is
Right.
what we do while we drive home.
So Marie's got another question here. Will you talk a little more about the energy leaks, since that can be a two-way street? energy leaking out or energy leaking in?
Yes. Thank you, Marie. That's an interesting question. Of course, the leaks go two ways. So when we don't have control over our own energy, when we allow energy, when we don't have boundaries about what we do and how we do, we oftentimes don't know. We don't even allow. We don't know where our energy goes to. So we are spending energy on things that's not healthy for us, not important for us. However you want to look at your energy, it's not good for you when energy is going somewhere that you don't know how to allow that or disallow that from happening. And then
Yes.
certainly there's also energy that comes into your life. And if there's leaks, there's spaces where you don't have boundaries that allows people to put their negative energy into your space, that also has a negative impact on you. So yes, that's very true. Thank you for that question, Marie. I hope it answers your question.
So her other comment next is, so learning from the unintentional reactive boundary, we can create the intentional boundary either internally or externally for the next time.
Yes, yes, that's very true. I'm glad you picked up on that, because sometimes people think boundaries is building a brick wall around ourselves to keep out whatever we want to keep out. And building brick walls around ourselves is not keeping us safe. It's only keeping us in a prison. So the boundaries we set needs to be external. So we need to teach about people what we will allow them to do to us.
Right.
But then also we have a lot of things going on inside our minds and inside our hearts where we need to set in boundaries. I'm trying to think of an example quickly. Let's say, for instance, the fact that this is something that comes up very often in different forms, where we think we are not good enough. And that is an internal boundary we need to set, to say, like, to find out why we feel we are not good enough and set a boundary for ourselves. This boundary can look simply like, when I think I'm not good enough, I need to take a breath and realize the fact that I'm alive is proof that I'm good enough. I don't need any other proofs. You can take that boundary, or you can create your own boundary about not being good enough. So yes, it's definitely true. We need to create external boundaries as well as internal boundaries. I have found that internal boundaries is a lot harder work. It's really, really hard to create internal boundaries. But it's sometimes better to start with internal boundaries, because then you don't have to say no to someone else. You're only saying no to yourself. So it's a good place to start practicing to say no.
And also it gives us the opportunity to really think about what we want in life. Not that we're engaged in life, that we're not letting life happen to us. We're actually engaged in making the decision about what kind of life we want to have. And so there is a lot of introspection that needs to happen, would you say, in then knowing what your internal boundaries are? Because if you haven't really thought that through, perhaps you didn't even consciously realize that you were thinking that you weren't good enough. Maybe it's just something that, your parents said to you, or somehow in society that, you got that impression, but you hadn't actually really thought through the process of, well, why am I behaving this way? Because I actually feel I'm not good enough.
Yes, yes, that's very true. And I love that you brought up the fact that we are able to choose the life we want to live.
Absolutely.
But we're also able to choose who we want to be in this life that we are living. Because oftentimes we just come from whatever programming told us to create coping mechanisms for us to survive in a space. And when we're not in that space anymore, we are still using that coping mechanisms because it's integral in our wiring. But we are able to rewire how we react and what we do, and rewire these coping mechanisms to be the person we want to be in this life, not just living the life we want to live.
So true. And that, I love the way that you phrased that, because, you know, oftentimes, and I'm sure all of us, Marie and yourself and myself, as we're seeing our clients, we kind of see them, some of, they show up to us obviously because they are looking for us to help them, but it's kind of like someone else has run their life. You know, as you mentioned earlier about emotions running the show, it's like they haven't really been engaged. Perhaps they started a career because that was, you know, medicine was in the family. They didn't really want to be in the medical community, but it was expected. So it's not until they can actually internalize the fact that they're usually coming to us because they're not happy. And so they're having, there's all sorts of issues that are showing up. So just to be able to maybe hold a little bit of a mirror up to them to say, okay, well, did you choose this? Or was that an expectation? And it, you know, that's a simple one that I used, but it could also be a society expectation that you be a certain way, or you have a certain lifestyle. And then when you're not feeling fulfilled because you're not really being the person that you are meant to be.
Yes, that's very true.
So this is fabulous. I'm so excited about this. Tell us about your program, because we're going to put those in the show notes, about how to connect with you and how to sign up for the program that you're going to start in January.
Yes. So the Emotional Elixir Experience is the name of what I'm putting out in the world. And then I am busy with a beta test now for an 8-week group program, which is called the Emotional Elixir Circle. Now I'm confusing my own words. My 8-week program is called the Emotional Elixir Circle. So in this 8-week program, we work on each pillar for 2 weeks. And I'd love to invite people to sign up for the waiting list to join me in January. I'm not sure exactly when in January, so please sign up with your email address on the waiting list so I can contact you and tell you when the program is going to start.
Perfect. And that we have included that in the show notes. It's the one that says form, and it's got the bit.ly, so that you can put your email there. Elmarie also has a Calendly link where you can sign up for her, and her website is there, and her other social media links like LinkedIn and Facebook. So yes, please put your name on the list, and once Elmarie's got the date in January, she will get back to you. So and I'm just so delighted that you're doing this, because it makes the boundaries coaching so much more robust, because you've got all the pieces now that are needed to support someone that is trying to change. Obviously, they're changing how they have lived their life around boundaries. And I really truly believe they need all of the pillars. So let's repeat those pillars, just for maybe people popped in a bit later. So just repeat the pillars for us.
Certainly. So the first pillar is intentional boundaries, where we learn why we don't have boundaries, what is the difference between reactional boundaries and intentional boundaries, and how to set boundaries, and also how to maintain boundaries, because it's oftentimes easy to set boundaries, but to maintain boundaries,
Yeah,
and and learning that we expect that people will step over our boundaries, and that doesn't make the boundary wrong, or make that a boundary is not the boundary you need to have. It just means you need to learn how to maintain the boundary and make sure everyone understands, and go back and set up the boundary again and make sure everyone's understand again how it works and why it's important that you have this boundary. Because boundaries oftentimes is not only about our own safety, it's also about how other people perceive themselves.
Yeah. Yeah. And
Because
it's not
if you
making
step
the
over
it's
a
not
boundary,
making
you're not respecting this.
exactly. And it's not making the other person wrong. It's just you're setting the boundary for you.
Yes. Yes. And then the second pillar is self-relationship repair. So when we don't have boundaries, we oftentimes don't love ourselves that much. So in the second pillar, in the week 3 and 4 of the program, we're going to learn about how we abandoned ourselves and why perhaps we abandoned ourselves, and then how to repair that relationship with ourselves so we have a loving, healthy relationship with ourselves. And then the fourth pillar is emotional flow mapping, where we map out what happens in when we react to our emotions, how that works, and how do we reframe the mapping. We are remapping our actions and our reactions to our emotions, and mapping it out to give us a moment to respond to what is the situation where we are reacting to our emotions. But because if we respond, we have the power. If we react, we act as a victim of the circumstance or the situation we are in. And then the fourth pillar is energy leadership, where we learn, do we know where our energy goes? Do we know what energy comes into our lives? Do we know why it's
Oh, we just froze for a minute, but I think that is that's great, just to do that review on the 4 different pillars of the emotional elixir experience. So just see whether Elmarie's internet will come back on. And we are at the end of our 30 minutes that we usually take to have a conversation about this amazing subject. So I'll just finalize our time together. We do have a vision, the Healing Institute, that we are a community of health professionals. We really look at your individual issue that you have in the health field, and we get to the root cause of it by creating a program or something for you, a session for you. It's not one size fits all. So our vision is to have create this community, and also we have a big ask. We would like you to share this podcast with your family and your friends and your community. Let them all know that we have some amazing, fabulous holistic practitioners that are here to help them on their health journey. Our motto is service with love. And I just want to thank Elmarie again for being on the podcast. And we look forward to connecting on the show notes. You can connect with her. All right. Thanks so much.